Hello everyone. In this video I'm going to go through the files that you get from FSO to build your project. You're going to have three of them, and that is your project, your sequence, and your track scene. So the first one I'll go through is the project. So this is your Portfolio 3 project. If you just double click this, it's going to extract it in whatever directory you have this in. So I recommend you moving this zip file to wherever you want your Maya project to exist, because this is going to create a project for the robotic arm that you're going to rig and place in an animated sequence. So it's going to create this folder called Portfolio 3, and if you expand it out, it is a Maya project folder with a workspace folder as well. And so all you have to do at this point is set your project. So if I go to Maya and I go to File and Set Project, I can go to, this is on my desktop, so I can go to Desktop, Portfolio 3 Demo, and Portfolio 3, and I'll do Set. All right, so now my project is set, and if I go to File and Open, I'll have two scenes here. I have a binary and an ASCII. The ASCII file has been saved version independent, so if you want to use that, that's fine. The Maya binary was done with a student version. I'm currently running a student version, so it's going to give you a student version each time. So if you've done the full Maya license, you don't like that student edition thing popping up, go ahead and use the ASCII file. I'm going to go ahead and just do the binary file, and I'll say open, and I don't need to save that. And that was a student version, yes, I know. And so what I will get is the geometry for my robotic arm. So just running through this real quick, all this is it's an arm that has all of its pieces laid out. So each piece is an independent hard surface piece that is going to be rigged in later videos. If I shift click here and show all the geo, I've named everything for you, so whenever I'm talking in the video, you'll know what I'm talking about with the different pieces. So we'll be doing the main rig here, and then we'll have the secondary stuff like I call them dynamic hoses. We'll be doing some dynamics if you want, or we can just leave these as IKs, and we'll explain that more later. That's what all these pieces are. And so that's your geo. There are textures for it, so it's already textured. You don't have to do anything as far as texturing goes. So yeah, all those pieces are there for you. And so this will be what you base your initial rig off of. Now you can keep all this in one project, or you can use this as your just for the rig of this, and then you have maybe a separate scene for all your animation and stuff like that. However you want to handle it. I keep it all in one project. It's simpler. Just make sure you name everything correctly. All right. All the texture files and everything are in the source images folder. So if I hop back here and I go in, the only directories in here that have anything are the scenes, which is these two, and then your source images, and that's where I put all of the textures for this guy. So if for some reason you do want to edit some of the textures, they're all in here. I have maps for everything, so I have diffuse AO and all that stuff. They're not all mapped. The only ones that are being used is diffuse, normals, roughness, and specular. Those are really the only ones being used. So if you want to put your name on, you want to change up the colors, just edit the appropriate map. You can also go into the Hypershade, and all the shaders are set up in here. I've got it cleaned out, so it's fairly simple. All of the pieces share UV space, so if I go into the UVs in my UV editor, you'll notice that the map, as I select through the different pieces, let's see if I can get this all showing up at once. As I jump through the different pieces, everything is in one UV space with the exception of this piece up here is in its own, and the grippers. So if I grab all these are in their own, as well as this piece right here. This one is the rest of this. So this and this are all one, and then the entire rest of the model is in a separate UV space with its own shader. So each one, there's only two shaders involved. So you only have basically it's 6 maps total that are actually driving all of this. All right. So yeah, so that's the makeup of the robotic arm. Let me get this out of the way here, and let me hop back to my Finder, and did I close it? Uh-oh, I did. So let me go back to desktop demo. All right. And so that's scene and source images. And so next to this, we have our sequence. The sequence is the biggest one. You're going to be doing an animation on top of a live action sequence. So the sequence is actually the background plate. So I'll go ahead and double click this, and it's going to extract it out. It's going to take it a minute. We'll let this run. As soon as it's done, we're going to have a sequence folder. There we go, Portfolio 3 sequence. And so when I go inside, what I have are a bunch of EXR files. So if I can spacebar on that, this is our background sequence. So as I step through this, it's going to take it a minute. It's a little slow. Let me do this a little quicker in a different way. I actually did this dump in Nuke. So this is the sequence. It's 238 frames. And as I scrub through, what we have is a live action sequence where we're kind of moving along. All right, so this is your background. This is what you're going to be actually comping with. So you don't really need this sequence particularly for like rendering and things. You'll use it for placing. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to put the robot arm somewhere on this tabletop, and the camera is going to move around, and you're just going to animate the robot arm doing something to show your rig's working, and whatever else you feel like doing. And so you're going to be rendering out all your passes, and we're going to be integrating this into the plate so that your arm moves with the camera motion. All right, so that is your sequence. Now, the sequence is actually used in Maya with the third one. Now, this is where things get maybe a little weird for you guys, maybe not, I don't know. We'll find out, but I'm going to try and make this as simple as possible. So basically, you guys aren't going to track the scene. I tracked it for you, so I already have a 3D camera move that's going to be used. So the layout portion of your animation is kind of already mostly done because the camera move is already there. You don't get to modify that at all. What you do get to do, though, is place your robotic arm, scale it, place it wherever you need it to go. All right, so this scene here is an FBX file. And so if I double click this, what it's going to do is it's going to extract out just in FBX. All right, so this FBX is basically going to be imported into a scene. So it'll be a new scene that you create, and then you're going to also import or reference in your rig to go together. And so by that I mean you don't want to import that FBX into this scene. I don't recommend it. I recommend you take this scene, save it as a rig, and then make a new scene to bring the FBX in, and then import the rig. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and close this, and I'm going to File, and I'm going to do a new scene. Don't save. And what I'll do is I will File and import the FBX file. So right now it's going to go to the scenes, and that's not where it's at. It's actually up in the root. So you can take the FBX and drop it into your scenes if you want. So I'm going to go up to the folder where I was at, Portfolio 3 demos, where I was, and I'm going to grab this FBX file that I just double-clicked to extract out of the zip. I'm going to say import, and when I do, what's going to happen is this. I'm going to get this scene. All right, so I need to kind of explain how this works. So when you track a shot, and I export it to any 3D application, what I'm going to get is a camera. So if I rotate around and look, there is a camera. This camera will move based on the motion of the real camera that I videoed. So this camera is moving as I move the timeline. And you can see it better if I actually go over here to the side. And so as I scrub this, my camera is moving. Now this plane you see in the background, this big black thing, that is where the image sequence goes. So when you're looking through this camera, you can actually see what the background looks like. Now if I hit 6 right now, what I get is my image sequence. All right. Now I'm getting the image sequence because the FBX is pulling the EXRs from my hard drive because I tracked the shot. Now when you guys get this, when you hit 6, it's going to probably stay black or maybe give you an error or something like that. And so what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to map the sequence to the plane. So as I scrub through here, you're going to notice that the sequence is playing on the background. Now there's a couple things you need to fix as soon as you import this. And this is a problem with FBX and the way it exports. It didn't keep the correct frame setup. You may notice down here that it goes to frame 0. All right. I never tracked from frame 0. The original sequence didn't start at frame 0, but for some reason, whenever I export an FBX, it is actually creating it at frame 0. So the first thing we need to do is fix our frame range. So I need to go in and set this one on the left. I need to set it to 1 so that I can't go all the way back to 0. It stops at 1 now. All right, so set that to 1. The other problem I've got, and you may notice, I have a little area back here with no keyframe on it. So as I come all the way down here to the end, notice my image sequence goes away. Excuse me. So the reason for that is because it offset to frame 0, it did an offset on my image plane. Now, whenever you export an FBX that creates a plane like this for a 3D app, the FBX file has a shader on it. So if I go into my Hypershader real quick, there is an actual shader in here that is pointing to a file. It's called the Camera 1 screen material. So when I select it and I graph it out, what I've got is I have basically just this Phong. It's just a basic material that's visible. It's plugged into the incandescence so that I don't get any specular highlights or anything like that. All the spec colors shut off and everything. So, and I get this EXR file. All right. So this EXR file comes in, and this is my sequence. All right. So what I need to do is I need to fix how the frame numbers are being interpreted on the file itself. And the way I do that is I can't do that here. I can't do it in this file attributes because this is the Hypershade. It has a different property editor than the actual attribute editor. What I have to do is once I have this selected is go out here. I'll go ahead and close this. And now I have my screen texture selected and I have a different file attribute. And you're going to notice now it says use image sequence and then image sequence number 190. It says 192. However, right below it, there's a frame offset. And what it's doing is it's doing a frame offset to push it to frame 0. Why it's doing this, I do not know. FBX does this, and it's something I just remember to go in and turn it off each time I do an export. And so you can always know if this is working by go ahead and scrubbing up to where it disappears. Now it's at 238, but the frame offset of 1 tells it to backtrack and actually load or jump forward and load 239, which it doesn't exist. So I get a gray background. So what I do is I just go to my frame offset and set it to 0. That says don't offset any frames, just take them as they are. So now I have frames 238 all the way back to frame 1, and they all work. All right. So that's the one thing that you have to fix. Now, another explanation of what's happening in this scene. Now it looks a little weird when you're looking at it from this angle. You can see the sequence playing, but the plane's moving across the scene, and you got all these locators everywhere. All right. When you do a 3D track of a scene, what happens is you will get what we call a point cloud. The point cloud is basically just tracked points that I tracked, and it created. It calculates where those points exist in 3D space based on the motion as they move across the screen. All right. And so basically, I get a 3D representation of my scene. All right. Now it looks weird from here. Yeah, it's 3-dimensional, but how do I know that's part of the scene? Well, all I have to do is look through my camera. So I have perspective, which is your base 3D perspective camera that's always there whenever you open Maya. And now I have this other camera. This camera came from the FBX, and this is my track camera. This is the camera we see moving around. So whenever I look through this camera, now I'm seeing this plane. This plane is sized to be the exact size of the frustum of the camera. And so it's the actual rendered view. So if I actually render this, what I get is this background. Now in RenderMan, I will not get that. I'll get some weird looking thing because RenderMan doesn't deal with this particular type of material very well. I'd have to create a new material for it. But I don't really care because I don't want to render this background with my CG because this will be comped later. So all I want in here is my CG. So what we're looking at here are like these locators. So if I select them, those are locators in Maya. All right, that's these little points here. So if I grab, say, this point, and I look at it, it's actually, I'll see if I can do this here. It's actually like tracking this little point here. So as I scrub my timeline, what you see how that point follows? And it's not that this is moving. This isn't actually moving. None of these points are in motion. What we're seeing is the motion of the camera that I'm currently looking through. This is my Maya grid. So my camera is moving. It's moving exactly the way the original camera did. All right. Now, the reason why this is important is when you start placing things. I intentionally created a point on the grid that's on the table right here. And I've aligned it so that it's kind of lining perfectly straight back on the grid. So as I bring objects into this scene, they'll come in on the grid to start with. And then any point, if I need to move, say I want to put my, maybe I want to put my robotic arm right here on this point. This point, if I snap directly to it, is always going to move correctly with the camera. And I'll show you. I'll go in and I'm going to switch cameras real quick. Let me just switch back to perspective. So we'll say that's the point I want to snap to. All right. So as I rotate around, there's my grid. My grid's up there. You don't have to worry about placing it in this view, but I'm doing this so that I can go in and do this. So I'll say create polygon cylinder. All right. So I'll make a cylinder. My cylinder gets created. Let me frame this up. My cylinder gets created halfway through the grid. And so what I'll do is I will just, first I'm going to scale it this way, and I'm just going to make it a little bit wider. And then I'm going to translate it up. It's got a height of 1, so I'm going to translate it up by 1. All right, oops, did I go too high? Nope, that's it. So it's right on the ground. Then I'm going to take my, hold down D, I'm going to snap this vert snap this to the bottom. Bang. So now my pivot is now the bottom of the cylinder. All right. This is important to note. So when you're placing things, you want to make sure that if you're going to snap to a tracker, that your pivot is in the correct spot. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back to my other camera view. So I'll go perspective, camera shape 1. So now I'm back to this view. All right. If you accidentally move the camera here, like I've moved my camera, it didn't screw anything up. Because the camera that you're looking through is keyed, as soon as I move the timeline, it snaps back. All right. So let's say I want this cylinder to be on this point here. Well, all I have to do is locators can be vert snap too. So I'll hold down V, middle mouse, and it'll snap right to that point. I am snapped onto that tracker. All right. If you want to see that, I'll switch back to my other camera and frame this up. And if I look underneath, there's that tracker. I just snapped to that guy right there. All right. So whenever I go back to my camera view and I play this, notice that my CG follows correctly with the background plate. All right. Now I did this on purpose to keep this as flat as possible, so I can actually move this. Oops! I actually grabbed the tracker. I need to grab this guy. Make sure you grab the right thing. Come on. All right. And so I can actually move this around on the table anywhere I want. All right. For this class, don't put anything behind another object. I'm not really going to be covering roto and all that stuff and how you extract out the stuff that's in the plate to put it over the top of CG and stuff like that. We're not going to get that deep. We don't have a lot of time. So keep all of your objects kind of out here in this area so that you don't have to worry about anything going in front of it. All right. But I can move this, say, over here. And so as my timeline plays, it kind of goes over there. And you kind of see, oops, it kind of went. It should be on top behind this, so I'll just go and move this over a little bit. All right. And so as this plays, the object stays stuck on the table. I don't have to worry about it. All right. Where the problem comes in is they'll get in a view like this, and they'll have their object, and they're like, oh, I want to put it over here, and they grab it like this, and they go, all right, it's right here, and it's right there on the table. All right. Well, my problem is I grabbed it by this. All right, and this is moving it in 3D space. Like, it's not moving it on a flat plane. It's moving it at the angle of my camera. So if I do this, what's going to happen is it's not going to move with the plate. So as I start playing it, I got lucky, and it did land on it. So let me do this. I will go, hey, let's put it back over here on this side. And when I play, what's going to happen? See how it's sliding around? Look how badly that's sliding across the table. That's because it's not placed correctly. If I want it to be over on this corner of the table, I need to I'll give it a little touch on the middle, vert snap to say this point. Now that I've vert snapped it and I move it, it moves correctly. See how it moves with the table as I go around? It's not sliding anywhere. That's one of those things that you have to kind of play with it. Because like if I say I do this, all right, so I'm gonna go, okay, there it is. I'm gonna put it right there on the table. All right, it looks like it's on the table. Now I've intentionally made it so that it's not correct. Now watch how bad it is. So as I move, see how it's now sliding in the air? It's like, oh, how do I get it right? All you got to do, if you want to get it back on the table, is just make sure you got the middle selected and just vert snap to any point down there on the table. And now it will move with the table because that tracker is moving with the table. All right. Now I can do this. As long as the bottom is touching, the rest of it's all me. So I can make this thing really tall and go up like this. And as I scrub, now that cylinder is there. If I go in and do edge select, edge ring and split, bang, and grab faces. Grab some faces here, say that face, and we'll do a mesh, edit mesh, extrude. I'll just extrude this guy out. I am not a modeler. I will tell everybody that right now, but I know the tools. And so now my 3D object is moving around accordingly, just like you would expect it to if this actually existed there. All right. But that is basically the structure of how you do all of this. I can select this cylinder and delete it. So just remember, make a new Maya scene, import the FBX, fix the frame, turn off that frame offset, set this to frame 1. The in frame will be right. It exports the right number of frames outwards, but for some reason it leaves a frame 0. And make sure you turn off that frame offset, and then you import anything else that you need. So let's say I do a file import and I go grab the go back to my scenes and I go grab the robot arm. I'll grab the MA. So yeah, I'm a student version. So now I brought in the robot arm. So now I can grab the robot arm and I can go ahead, and it's already set with its pivots in the right spot. And I can go ahead and turn this. I can scale it down. It's a little big. Say about, we'll say about not that big. All right, and as this plays, my robot arm is sitting in my scene. It's a little too close on that side, so I'll just go to W and slide it over to the right a little bit. On that plane, excuse me, coming off cold, sorry. And so now everything moves. So once you've got your rig built, you'll be able to animate this and move it around and do whatever you want. As long as you keep the base on the plane, all the other animation will be fine and it'll fit into the scene. And then it's just a matter of getting our render passes done and integrating. All right, so you follow those steps, you won't have any problems as far as like placement goes. All right. Again, if you have any questions or anything, please shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks.